For Greedy Williams, this draft was definitely far from perfect. He was at one point getting talked about as a potential top 5 and top 10 pick, and then he ended up falling all the way to the second round. Apparently one of the reasons that he fell was he had some character issues. Apparently a lot of coaches at the combine would tell him to do certain things, and he kept either ignoring their instructions or just not doing it the way they wanted him to. There were allegedly some issues at the combine, and there was even some rumors that he had given up in the middle of a drill. So if that's true, that definitely would be a little bit worrisome and could be a reason why he fell. But that's all alleged, and it's not like he has any off-the-field concerns, so maybe I wouldn't worry about that too much. The fact of the matter is, what this guy put on tape was actually pretty impressive. Maybe one of the most fun games to watch him was when he played Ole Miss, because he was going up against Metcalf for pretty much the entire game. And yes, I got it now, it's Metcalf, not Metcalf. Thank you for the 8,000 comments letting me know that. One thing I definitely noticed about Greedy is he will often play pretty far deep. He doesn't play press a lot. Obviously, a shred of that will be coaching, but also your cornerback does have to know what positioning is, and positioning is so much of the battle for a defensive back. It's true in a lot of ways. Positioning does mean so much, and Greedy does have a tendency to basically play a little bit too far back too much in my opinion. Like on a play like this, he's right there in the top half of the screen going up against Metcalf, and there's really two things Metcalf could be doing here. He could be running a curl route like that, which is actually what he's going to be faking doing, but instead he's going to be running a go route right over there. So if you notice, if this actually was a straight up curl route, then this could be an easy completion if the quarterback threw it now. So now Metcalf fakes as though it is going to be a curl route, so he stops right here, and look at how far away Greedy is. Ole Miss's quarterback is not going to throw it there because that's not the route. However, if that was the route, it would be an easy completion here. But because that's not what the route was, that means that Metcalf is going to run straight into where Greedy is and basically get taken out of the play. So maybe you could argue, well hey, Greedy read the play correctly. Maybe he knew it wasn't going to be a curl route and played too far deep. However, I just don't think that's the case at all. I just think that he plays a little bit too far deep because he doesn't want to get burned. He has the mindset of, I'd rather give up a 10-yard completion for a first down than give up a touchdown, which probably is the right mindset to have. But it is still a little something I noticed, that he does play a little bit too far deep from time to time. But also notice that this play is not over yet. There's great protection right now, and so what Metcalf is going to do is simply run back to the quarterback. It's not going to work out largely because there are other LSU defenders in the area. By the time the receiver finally does get open, Greedy is able to get over and get into the area, make sure there's no completion. And I guess it should be mentioned that, you know, on the majority of that play, the receiver wasn't open, but a receiver doesn't have to be open for the majority of the play. He only has to be open for one moment. And he actually was pretty open there. If that was a better throw, that could have been a completion. So definitely something to be a bit worried about if you are a Browns fan. So okay, I showed a bad play, but now let's show a good play. Greedy is going to be in zone coverage here, and Metcalf is going to be running right there, a go route on the top half of the screen. Williams is in charge of covering the zone on the top right hand corner of the screen, so this means that basically at the end of Metcalf's route, he's going to run into Greedy's zone. While he struggled a little bit in positioning on that last play, this play he's going to end up playing it absolutely perfectly. I mean, right now I'm going to stop it because there's absolutely no window to make this throw. I mean, Metcalf is a little bit taller than Greedy, so maybe if it's a jump ball, he could try to make a catch. But this is now going to take a perfect throw and a fantastic catch, which almost never happens. So that's just great coverage by Greedy. You actually see the flag thrown there, and that wasn't defensive pass interference, that was offensive pass interference. That was because Metcalf ran into Greedy. He did such a good job of defending Metcalf that Metcalf ends up getting a pass interference play because he just didn't know what to do in that situation, and ended up being a good play for the defense. You don't often see offensive pass interference just due to great coverage, but that's kind of what happened there. I think Greedy actually probably shines the most when he's in the red zone. He's a great red zone corner, and that can be very effective, especially when you're going up against a team that has a great receiver like DK Metcalf. Like on this play, for example, they're going to the top half of the screen, and it's going to be a simple fade route, which is obviously a great play to run in this situation. I mean, there's probably 6-year-olds that have just watched their first game of football, and have figured out this is a good route to run in an end zone situation. It's low risk and high reward, especially when you have a good receiver like Metcalf. So first things first, what's going to happen is Greedy is going to get right up on Metcalf. I mean, they're basically right next to each other. So what Metcalf is going to do here is he's basically trying to use his size to his advantage and try to create some space. While Greedy is 6'2", he's also only about 185 pounds, so he's definitely on the skinny side despite being tall. Meanwhile, DK is 6'3" and 228 pounds, so he's got a solid 40 pounds on Greedy. Of course, you can't just push him all the way because that would be offensive pass interference and once again another 10-yard penalty backwards. But he's going to try to create some contact and just get enough separation that he can try to make the catch. However, he doesn't create enough separation, Greedy's able to hang on and knock the ball away. He really just gets his hand in there. That's just great play by Greedy. It also looked like he turned around and said something to DK like, yeah, try to push off all you want, that's still not going to work. And you know, I personally love that in defensive players. If a defensive player is going to trash talk, I just think that's perfect. Let's go back to what I talked about earlier about how Greedy can play a little bit soft from time to time. Like right here, he is playing press coverage, but he is going to play this very soft, and I'll show you what I mean once the play develops. It's going to be a curl route, and that can work out actually pretty well against press coverage. Because at the beginning of DK's route, he's going to be running to the left side of the screen, this now means that Williams is going to have to follow him in that direction. So then when Metcalf stops to finish his curl route, this should mean that Greedy could continue going in that direction. One thing you're going to notice is that there is no contact here. Really, when it comes to contact at the line, you don't want to just make contact every time, but you also don't want to never make contact. You want to kind of mix it up from time to time. It's almost like boxing, where you just want to kind of surprise your opponent. So since Greedy is not making contact here, this now means that Metcalf can get to the end of his route very quickly. This is basically a lottery situation for Metcalf, essentially, because there's no contact and he's running a curl route against press coverage, which is what you want. So now when he finishes the route and comes back, this now means that Greedy is horribly out of position and he's wide open. Really, I would have liked to see him at some point just get a hand on Metcalf in case there is a curl route. It seems like he just wasn't prepared for a curl route on that one, which is kind of surprising because Metcalf does run a decent amount of curl routes. You don't have to make contact at the line if you don't want to, but at some point you probably do want to just get a hand on him, just that way if he cuts back, it's easier for you to realize he cut back and you can run over and get into play. So I seem to be going from positive to negative to positive to negative, and I'll be doing that again with this play. We'll go back to a positive, and that's where Greedy is on the screen, and this time it's going to be zone coverage instead of man. So all Ole Miss is going to do is have their plus receiver run a go route right there, which is in Greedy's zone, and then they're going to have another receiver run an out route, which is also in Greedy's zone. So the idea behind this is pretty simple. Greedy's going to have to go back to make sure he's covering that plus receiver, and then the slot receiver can simply just run over and get open. It could allow you to pick up some yards and potentially even pick up the first down. But take a look at Greedy's awareness on this play. First off, he's looking at the quarterback, which is what you have to do in zone coverage. You have to make sure you keep your eyes forward. So he does that well, and then he looks over and realizes that there is a receiver right there, and so if Greedy stays back to make sure he's covering the plus receiver, this is now going to allow that receiver to get wide open and probably get a first down. So he knows his assignment here. Basically, he knows that he's going to have help behind him, and he runs over to try to make a play. It's just a good understanding by Greedy on that play of realizing what's going on, and also just a great job of having that acceleration to run over and make a play. It was just doing your job. It was realizing what's going on mid-play, figuring out what you have to do, and doing that. That thing can backfire if your safety doesn't realize what's going on either and cuts in. That could allow someone to get wide open, but the chances of that happening just aren't that huge if you have a good safety behind you. You have to trust your teammates if you're going to be successful, and Greedy did a very good job of trusting his teammate on that play. I do actually feel like Greedy's handwork at the line is pretty decent. Like on this play, he's going to be at the bottom half of the screen, and take a look at what's going to happen once the ball is snapped. What he's going to try to do is put the right arm right there on that receiver's right shoulder. So what do you do if you're a receiver and an opposing corner is trying to hit your right shoulder? Well, typically you try to get your right arm, hit his hand out of the way, and then run to your left. That's typically what you would want to do. And as you see, that's what he's going to end up doing very well. So you'd think, okay, well this was not a very good job by Greedy on that play, so why am I bringing that up saying it was a good job by Greedy? And the reason for it is because Greedy was actually aware of that kind of thing happening. He wasn't really worried about his hand getting knocked out of the way. He's just trying to slow that Georgia receiver down and also force the Georgia receiver to the middle of the field. He kind of pulls his own hand down when the Georgia receiver goes to hit his hand out of the way, which now means that he's not going to get pushed in any direction. So he can easily run back, and the Georgia receiver now has to run further to the middle of the field that he usually wouldn't have on that route, at least not at the start. That's all you try to do at the line. You're not trying to actually slow the guy down and make the play just stop right there. You're just trying to disrupt your opposing player. There's 1,000 different ways to do that, and that's just one of them. But it just goes to show, you know, again, it's like boxing. You want to just try to mix things up and confuse the other player. And while I do like that about him, there is some flaws I have, and one of them is he's not the best tackler. And honestly, not only that, but he's not the best at realizing when he has to get in position to try to make a tackle. Like, I noticed this situation quite a bit. So his assigned man is going to be running a go route to the bottom half of the screen. However, it's actually going to be a run to the bottom half of the screen, basically where Greedy is right now. But notice how long it's going to take Greedy to realize that the run is actually going to go in that direction, and he needs to try to make a tackle as opposed to just guarding the receiver he's in charge of covering. It takes him about 10 yards until he turns around and realizes what's going on, and by that point, it's such an easy block for a receiver to make. In today's day and age, you need corners who can tackle. That's a very underrated thing in defenses right now, I think, is having good tackling corners. I mean, obviously, the most important thing is going to be in the secondary. It's going to be making sure you take away passes. However, it still is very valuable to have a guy who can make sure he can make tackles, and it can be very dangerous if you have a corner who can't make tackles. And that's definitely far from a one-off as well. I mean, this thing has happened quite a bit. Like on this play, it'll be another example of it. This is the same game, in fact, so you think that he would have sort of realized, okay, I gotta be more careful and make sure I don't do that again. However, once again, he's on the bottom half of the screen, and once again, the receiver is going to fake as though he's running a go route to the bottom half of the screen. Greedy just never realizes what's going on, really. I mean, he just completely doesn't realize that it's going to be a run in that direction. Again, it is a tough play. You do have to first and foremost make sure you do cover the receiver you're in charge of covering. However, I definitely think there could be at least some communication going on that could help LSU. When you're going up against a corner who has a tendency to do this, so what are you going to do? You're going to attack that constantly. You're going to constantly run in that direction, and so Greedy is going to have to make sure that he can try to get over there more frequently. he might have to take the occasional glance over and see if it's a run or if it's a pass. That's just something you're going to kind of have to do. He is pretty good at creating contact at the line, and he might be better off doing that more frequently, so that way it gives him more time also to just glance over and see if it's a run. Because if a receiver runs a go route and you look over and see it's a run, you could easily get past him and then try to get into play. A corner making a good read on that can turn what was a 10 or 15 yard gain into a loss of 2. One thing I do like about Greedy is he does have great footwork and he's able to change his direction very well. Like on this play, he's going to be covering that receiver on the bottom half of the screen, and take a look at what happens once this ball is going to be snapped. He's not going to create contact, and the receiver is actually going to change his position a little bit. So this now means that if Greedy has bad footwork, he could easily trip over his own feet or just not be able to be in great position, and the receiver could get pretty open. However, despite all that, Greedy, despite being facing the wrong way and not being moving at all, so he doesn't have momentum going in his direction, he's still able to easily turn over and make sure he covers that receiver pretty well. Also worth noting on this play, once again, he did not glance over to see if it was going to be a running play. However, since it is a passing play, he did a very good job of taking away that receiver. Even the more this play develops, at no point is this receiver really open until after the ball is already thrown. So just great defense there by Greedy. He's a good player, I do like him a lot, and I do like having a tall corner to try to pair with Denzel Ward, although I do worry a little bit about the fact that Ward is definitely not a tackler either. So having 2 corners who can't make a tackle could create some problems with a lot of these teams that like to go east and west a lot. And also the rumors about him not being very coachable is definitely something I'd be a bit concerned about. However, rumors are just that, they're rumors. For all we know, he's totally coachable and just had a bad moment, or even for all we know, maybe he didn't even have a bad moment, that's just got blown out of proportion. Those things do happen. Regardless, I definitely think it's worth the pick if you're the Browns to give a second round pick for a guy who some people thought was top 10 talent. Even if you just have a decent number 2 corner, well, that's kind of worth it for a second round pick. So I like the pick from Cleveland.